Welcome to Power Lunch Live. I'm Rhett Power, your host. We do this program every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and today is no exception. I'm calling these conversations these days the quarantine conversations because I don't know about you, but I am in quarantine, and you should be too. Although I'm giving advice and I'm falling into the advice trap there. Which we're going to try to solve today. We're going to try to solve that problem today. But the point of the show is to have today's thought leaders, best-selling authors, CEOs, corporate leaders on the program so that we can all get better at what we do. We can learn from them. We can take their advice and maybe apply it to our own businesses and to our own organizations so that we can get better. Now, the fun part about it is that the show can be interactive. That only happens one way, and that is if you get on the keyboard and type your questions in and ask questions so we can get to those answers, because that's why we're doing this, right? Exactly. And so also like and share if you like the program so that other people in your network can benefit from the conversations. And because everybody's just sitting around, right? We're not doing anything, so you got time. You can like away. Now, my guest today probably needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway, if that's okay.
I probably do need an introduction. I'm not nearly as famous as you apparently think I am, Rhett, but let's go with that.
That's just not true, Michael. That's just not true, my friend. So I've got Michael Bungay Stanier. He's in the forefront of shaping how organizations around the world make being a coach-like an essential leadership behavior and competency. He's a #1 thought leader in coaching. His book, The Coaching Habit, is the best-selling coaching book of this century. Wow. Michael's the founder of Box of Crayons, which is a learning development company that helps companies transform advice-driven to curiosity-led, help them transform into that kind of organization. His new book, The Advice Trap, is now in stores, and in my humble opinion, is a must-read. Michael, welcome.
It is so good to be here. I'm drinking a quarantini, so drinking heavily as the day goes on. I'm not yet. I will drink a quarantini later on, but it's nice to be here, Rhett. Thank you.
Well, we are on airport rules, right? Which means you can have a beer at 9 o'clock in the morning. It's okay.
Right. Well, that is true, isn't it? I mean, you and I in our time have spent lots of time in airports, and there is a thing about the bars open, and you walk by at 8:30, and there's some dude having a beer, and you're like, huh? Are you coming from a time zone, or are you going to a time zone? But that's hardcore. Yeah.
I say that right. I have never been able to do that.
No.
The thought just. We're
lightweights, but never mind.
Well, I am a lightweight, and I admit it, and I'm okay with that. I'm not. Wow, we are in interesting times, and we'd be having a conversation, but just 2 weeks ago, I think our conversation today would be completely different.
Right.
Because I think in terms of the book and what you talk about on a daily basis, wow, is it not even more relevant now, I think, than it was 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, well, leadership is squeaking right now. It's hard to be a leader. It's hard to be a leader at the best of times. It is a messy, complicated position where people will push your buttons. You'll try and show up as the best version of yourself, and you will stumble and you will fail. But at times like this, when everything is uncertain, you're not quite sure who you are, who your team is, how you're going to work, the rise or fall of the organization you're working for. And so your amygdala is just going, allow me to take over your brain entirely. So you are fully in a fight or flight or faint or fart kind of a process right now. I mean, it is a hard time to lead.
Yeah.
And every part of you is wanting to take control and search for certainty. And A, that's not actually available. And B, there's a place for holding curiosity as a more generous, more useful stance for leadership. And that's kind of, I'm biased around that because that's what I teach and that's what I believe in. But, now is as good a time as any for you to say, what if I lead with curiosity rather than fake certainty?
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense to me, because my next question really was, what do you think we need to deliver as leaders, right? And how do we deliver that? Because it's just, you're dealing with uncertainty. And normally, I mean, I remember being a head of a toy company, right? And I usually dealt in certainties. How many pieces I needed to deliver to Toys R Us, how many there was not a whole lot of it. I mean, there was ambiguity, but still there was a lot more certainty than there was. Right.
Yeah.
And you can't give answers now. You can't say this is 2 weeks. You can't say this is 30 days. You can't say that you're not going to lose your job.
Right.
I mean, you can't deal in absolutes. And that, to me, somebody that maybe likes too much control, that's hard to get my head around.
Yeah. And it's control and also naive optimism as well, I think is dangerous. I mean, this goes way back to man's search for meaning, and lots of people listening in will know this, but written by a survivor of concentration camps in World War II. And one of the things that I really remember from that book is going, the optimist died first, because they're like, this will be over by Easter. And then when it's not over by Easter, it's like, well, this will be over by Christmas. And then when it's not over by Christmas, you're like, well, this will be over by, and then you're like, this will never be over. And kind of grounded optimism is the piece, which is like, this is hard now. This is reality now. Here's what's true now. And this too will pass. One of the tools I use in communication in general, and this might be useful for people listening in now, when you feel that rush of uncertainty, is to understand it's a 4-part structure that is useful in communication, but it's also just a useful self-management tool. So let me share it with you now.
Please.
It has its origins in the work by Marshall Rosenberg and nonviolent communication. Right. And he says, look, basically, and this is kind of my adaptation of it a little bit, everything we talk about falls into one of 4 different buckets, or everything has one of 4 different components. It's either data, feelings, judgments, and wants and needs. So data, feelings, judgments, wants, and needs. And let me go through them one by one, and this just might be helpful for people. Data are the facts. It's like what you can point at and go, this is true, this is proven. I could use this as evidence in a court case. So it's the stuff that's true and to be true. Feelings, how you're responding to the situation. And there are various models for feelings out there in the world. Swiss Miss, who's a wonderful blogger who I follow, Tina put out a feelings wheel the other day. It had 7 core feelings on it. I have a model which has 5: mad, sad, glad, ashamed, afraid. Mad, sad, glad, ashamed, afraid. So there's feelings, so data, facts, feelings, how you're emotionally responding to the situation. Mm-hmm. Judgments is how you're interpreting what's going on. And you actually have 3 different perspectives around judgments. So you have perspectives about the other person. You have perspectives about yourself, judgments about yourself and how you're doing. And then you have judgments about the situation at large.
Yeah.
And then the 4th element are kind of wants and needs, which are, the needs are the kind of the deeper, more human piece, which is like, I want certainty, or I want joy, or I want play, or I want connection. And then your wants are kind of the more quotidian, superficial kind of moment by moment thing, which is like, I need a martini, or whatever it might be.
Right.
And in this time when you can be in a place of overwhelm, this is not such a bad tool to go, let me separate out the data. What do I know to be true? Let me separate out how I'm feeling. Let me see it. Let me acknowledge it. Let me understand what my judgments are. And if I can, let me get grounded by what I want. What do I need? What do I want at this stage? And what often happens in our lives is data and judgment get mushed together because they sound like they're the same. Right. Feelings we often step over, so we don't really notice them. We just go, look, if I just pretend they don't exist, if I just force them down, maybe they won't, bamboozle me. And we're often not that clear on what we really want. And for me, it is a calming process to get what's in my head out of it into these 4 buckets, because it makes me go, okay, there's not as much data as I thought. Man, I am making up a whole lot of stuff about the little data that I have, fueled by some of the feelings that I've got right now. And I'm drifting because I'm not clear on what I want.
How can you, I love that process. And to me, if it was me, I do similar things. But to get in the habit of doing that, I would almost like write that down, right?
Yeah.
Every day. Like when you have major decisions, you can sort of draw that out on a piece of paper to sort of help you get in the habit of thinking that way, right?
Oh, yeah. So what I tend to do is I tend to literally kind of just do a 4x4 quadrant like that.
Love it. Yes.
And because there's a way that the foundation is actually the data and the wants and the needs, because the data is the facts, and the wants and needs are what ground you in terms of your action. Mm-hmm. And then feelings and judgments often play together, because it sounds like this. I am angry because I've been betrayed by my boss. I'm sad because it looks like my team is needing to disband. I am delighted because there's nobody who's better to talk to than Rhett right now. So, you can see how it's like feeling judgment. Mm-hmm. And so seeing how those two can dance together can be really helpful. But yeah, absolutely. Write it down, get it out of your head, because it just, often you look at it and go, I didn't even know that was in my head. But there you go.
And I didn't realize I was putting my feeling or my emotion aside to get to an answer. Yeah.
And honestly, for like white dudes like you and me, we do it better / worse than anybody. Are like, no, be rational. And there's this great research about traders on the New York Stock Exchange, that the ones who were best able to acknowledge how they were feeling were the ones who were best able to make rational decisions. Because what happens is, if you're like, I'm just going to pretend I'm not feeling this, I'm going to force it down, your brain is smarter than you are. Your brain goes, no, I'm going to be distracted by that. And it gets in the way of you thinking more clearly. Whereas an acknowledgement that, I am feeling, uncertain, concerned, afraid, anxious, discombobulated, your brain goes, okay, you get it. All right. Okay. So you're reading the reality. That's good. Now let's get on with the thinking piece.
Right. And it lets you make better decisions, right? I mean, I absolutely see that clearly. I know that in times where I suppress that in my own business, that's when I made the worst decision. Now that you just said that, I'm like, God, that's why I made that decision.
I know. I'm like, I'm glad we're talking about this, because I need to remember this myself. You just carry on talking. I've just got to do a little bit of self-work over here for now.
Come back here now. Don't do that. Oh, wow. Okay. That's I'll think about that a little bit more in a second. What are you doing? And I know you have a new CEO at Box of Crayons. Mm-hmm. What are you guys? And I'm going to get to the book, I promise, because I absolutely got to talk about that. But what are you guys doing at Box of Crayons that might be helpful for others in terms of like just communication and helping people get through this? Have you guys? Are they taking some steps you think are really that might be helpful to others?
Well, there's kind of 2 levels in which it's working at. One is, how am I and Shannon working together? Shannon's the new CEO, right? And she's fantastic. I mean, it is truly one of the best moves I've done is to hire Shannon. I mean, I've done a whole lot of things wrong as CEO and leader of that company, but hiring Shannon turned out to be one of the smarter things that I did. Now, here's the thing. She's been CEO for 9 months, and we know that founder transitions are notoriously tricky. They fail most of the time because founders, people like me, are honestly a nightmare. Like we're controlling enough. And so we spent a year up to her taking on the role officially, kind of working with a coach, kind of getting us warmed up and used to it, and figuring out protocols and how we process conflict and anxiety and uncertainty and all of that. And the same woman, Jill, is working with us ongoing to manage this. And, you know, partly it's managing Shannon stepping up to a role she's never played before, but partly it's managing me, because I'm like, I've been associated with running this company for 20 years. You know, right. I'm Boxer Crayons guy, and now I'm not. Now, and this has shifted a few times, but now the formal structure of me talking to Shannon is we have a meeting once a month. So what's really interesting is watching this current crisis unfold and watching me going, maybe they'll call me up and ask me to come back and save the day and be a hero and do this and do that. And there's like 93% of me going, I hope they don't. And I'm sure they won't. And the 7% of me going, yeah, but that would make me feel really relevant and helpful and, you know, hero. So part of it is around Shannon and I keeping our discipline around how we work together, so that I stay in the Goldilocks zone of not too distant and not too close in terms of that founder-CEO relationship. And then in terms of how Boxer Crayons is working, well, partly, you know, I know some of the story, but I don't know the whole story for the reasons I've just explained. But we've been a distributed company forever. And in fact, ironically, we took out a lease on an office building about 2 months ago. And we moved into and it was always meant to be a hub rather than you need to show up and work 5 days a week there. Right. But clearly at the moment, there's not a whole lot of action going on in the BOC HQ.
Right.
What Shannon is doing really well is she is being more assertive than she would have been in the past. And because she is declaring the priority, and the priority is for us to double down on how we deliver our programs. You know, Boxer Crayons delivers programs on how to be more coach-like. And we've had a mix of distributed and in classroom for a number of years. And we've always known that the shift has been towards this kind of distributed / virtual model. And right. now it's here. So now there is we've got 45 days to rebuild this piece, reframe the marketing, rediscuss how we approach our current clients, redecide how we support current clients through this work in a way that is supportive and not exploitative and not commercially naive at the same time. It's about understanding that, you know, it's unlikely we're going to make a whole lot of new client sales in the next 6 months, because in uncertainty, everybody hits a pause button.
Right.
And so the focus has been to name reality, claim optimism, stay focused. You know, there's project number 1. There is no project 2. That's the message at Boxer Crayons at the moment. And what's exciting for me is we have just such a good team at Boxer Crayons that they're from everything I've heard from Jill and Shannon and others, is like there's this moment of we are rising to this challenge.
That's a great attitude. You know, you said something that really stood out to me just a second ago, because we've had these conversations, and you and I are on a morning call with Marshall Goldsmith, but one of the things you just said was one of the other keys that I think I haven't heard yet, and that is discipline. And this time also calls for great discipline. It calls for compassion and honesty and empathy and all that. But it also you really have to be disciplined right now and focused.
Yeah, and it's weird because, you know, in myself, and I noticed talking to others as well, which is it's harder to do the grind than it might have done before, because you get distracted and you're like, it's easier for you to kind of find yourself becalmed in something or seduced by minutiae. But strategically, there's got to be, I really think it's helpful to say, great, here's the thing. We are getting this thing out and it needs to be ready in 45 days. And here's what it looks like. And do we know our roles? And can I check on what do you need to do your job? And, you know, in a situation like this, trying to find the line through the light and the dark is part of the art of showing up. Because if you spend too much time in the light going, oh, this is amazing, what a chance to innovate, what a chance to pivot, what a chance to, you know, have new business models show up, it was like, you are just a horrible human being. Whereas if you spend the whole time going, that's it, we're doomed, this is the zombie apocalypse, it's looking slightly different than I thought, but it's basically that. You're also like, you're just not the great person to be hanging around. You've got to try and find that light and that dark and the line between it. And it's different for everybody, you know, where you are in your organization, where you are in your life will show up differently, but you've really got to try and hold the balance of both, I think. Yeah,
I agree. All right, let's talk about the book. Let's get let's have some fun with this. And start and not talk about the zombie apocalypse. Okay, so in your first book, to me, it was about how to become more coach-like, right? It was about the questions that you can ask, and
that's right.
And I think with the advice trap, to me, this was about creating an environment, I guess, right? A different environment.
Yeah, you know, the coaching habit. So it came out 4 years ago.
It's really more about behavior.
That's right. You got it. The coaching habit came out 4 years ago, February the 29th, 2016. And, you know, it has been this amazing success, sold 750,000 copies, which is made even sweeter by the fact that I spent 3 years having it turned down by publishing houses. So I ended up self-publishing it. So now I'm like, you know, I'm trying not to be too smug about that, but I am totally smug about that.
You can be smug about that. That's okay.
And there's a lot of people who've read that and have let me know one way or another to say, look, it's great. You give me 7 questions. You give me the basis of a habit. And I've done that. I've incorporated that into the way that I work, and it's changed the way I lead my team. It's changed the way I work with my kids and my spouse. You know, it's kind of shifted the way I show up in the world. I'm now more curious. And I celebrate that, and I celebrate those people. And there's also a lot of people who go on, look, your book was good, Michael. I liked it. And if I'm honest, I haven't shifted my behavior a whole lot because for some reason, I keep defaulting into telling people what to do. And even though there's one part of my rational brain goes, no, ask a question. There's a bigger part of my brain that goes, just tell them what to do.
Because I know what to do.
Because I know what to do. And what the advice trap is about is really going, okay, what does it take to tame your advice monster? Because that's the metaphor we're using to go, this is the part of you that keeps wanting to jump in and fix it and solve it and offer up ideas and solutions. How do we tame your advice monster?
I want to read a symbol now. I don't know how to do that, but
yeah, exactly. You're like, here he comes. And the starting point actually, Rhett, is to realize that it's to realize 2 things. The first is to realize that I'm not saying never give advice. It's a really important caveat to put up front, which is like, advice is a critical part of how civilization works. So there's nothing wrong inherently with advice. What we're trying to shift is the default response you have of leaping in to give advice. And if you've ever experienced that moment when somebody starts talking to you about a situation, and even though you don't really know what's going on or the people involved or the context or the technical specifications, after about 10 seconds, your brain is like, I've got something to tell them. When will they shut up so I can tell them my awesome idea? And, here's what I know to be true. Everybody listening to this knows this moment.
Yes.
Well, that's your advice monster. And what we're looking to do is shift that default response. And you want to understand why this default advice giving is flawed. And it's flawed in 3 ways. Number one, you're solving the wrong problem, because almost certainly the thing they're talking to you about isn't the real challenge. It's their starting guess, it's their opening salvo, it's a hypothesis. But rarely is the first challenge the real challenge.
Wow. Okay.
Even if it is the real thing, this is the actual critical thing that needs to be figured out and solved. The second challenge with your advice is it's not nearly as good as you think it is. You are preloaded with a bazillion cognitive biases that make you think that you know what's going on, that you have the best ideas, that your best idea is solving the right problem. Honestly, your solutions aren't nearly as good as you would like them to be.
Okay.
Particularly if you think you give advice. There's some weird correlation that says the more certain your ideas are good, the more likely that your ideas are not as good as you think they are.
I believe that.
Let's just say, for the sake of fantasy, that not only do you have a really good challenge in mind, you're like, this is what I need to solve. And not only do you have a really great solution, which is like, no, this is actually brilliant. This is just gold dust. This is outstanding as a solution.
Right.
The third challenge with your default response in leaping in to give advice is it may not be the leadership that is being called for. Because you have this moment, this crossroad, where you're like, I could jump in and give them the right answer to solve the proper problem. And there are some benefits to that. Speed, fun. I know it's going to be a good answer. I feel smart and I feel in control. And look at the value that I've immediately added. But there's a price you and they pay for that, which is you are diminishing them, because you're like, you can't figure this out yourself. You don't have the answer. I'm not going to make you smarter. I'm not going to help you find your answer. You're also becoming the bottleneck to your own organization, which is like, oh, my job is to solve everybody's problem for them. I need to have all the answers. I need to save the day. I need to save the person.
Yeah.
There's a way that, and there's an equation where you may be going, look, the bigger win is for me to help them find their own answer. And even if that answer isn't quite as good as yours, and of course, that's what you're always going to believe. You're always going to believe that your answer is slightly better than theirs. The trade-off is they walk away going, I get the insight, I own the idea, I can act on the idea, I've got smarter, I feel empowered. And that is more times than not the big win to be had here.
Yeah, that's the long-term win, isn't it?
It's not even that long-term. It's like, they're better tomorrow. And if you'd like your people to get better on a day-by-day basis, then this process of going, can I slow down? This is how I define coaching. Can you stay curious a little bit longer? Can you rush to action and advice giving a little bit more slowly? It's as simple and as difficult as that. It's not never give advice. It's just slow down the rush to give advice, because you will make your people smarter, faster.
How do you give? So if I have a team that's trying to figure out, this is some good coaching right here. If I have a team that's trying to figure a problem out, maybe I've faced a problem before. How do I, as a leader, suggest, give ideas without, and still at the same time giving them that empowerment to figure it out? And how do I fit into that process to help them?
Sure. You know what? I've got some ideas on how to answer that question. But before I give you my ideas, let me ask you, Rhett, what do you think? What's your first ideas on how you would do that?
See, yeah, that's it right there. That's good coaching. I think what I have done in the past is said, hey, I'd love to sit in and see how you guys figure this out. I'd love to sit in on your team meetings, just be part of it. Just be part of the team.
Nice.
And offer I've seen something similar before. This is not the same, but this is what we did when that happened before.
Yeah. So that's great. So kind of going, can I be present, and maybe there'll be an opportunity for me to offer that up. Cool. What else could you do?
Just spud out.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. I know you're going to get there. I'm glad you got there. What else? What else could you do that might be a way of going, I've got a thing and I really want to tell them?
I don't know what I'm stumped.
Yeah. So perfect. And what, for the people watching, you've seen my answer actually play out, which is when somebody comes to me and goes, hey, Michael, how do I? Because there's no bigger invitation for your advice monster. When somebody comes in and goes, hey, how do I do this? Your advice monster goes, oh, see, I mean, I know you don't like me, but I literally have to tell them the answer here, because it would be morally irresponsible if I didn't give them the answer. So you gotta tame your advice monster. That's what this is about. Tame your advice monster. So I have a script.
It's hard, man. It's hard.
It totally is hard. But I just worked my script with you. I'm going to play back what I said almost word by word. I went, hey, Rhett, good question. And it's a real question. And I've got some answers. And I'll tell you what I think, because I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm going to make sure you get the answers that you're looking for. But before I give you my answers, I know you've got some ideas. So what could you do? And then I can shut up. And you're like, oh, actually, I do have some ideas. And I'm like, good. And whatever you were going to say, I was going to nod my head and look interested and then go, that's a great idea. I like it. And then whatever you would have said, I'm going to go, what else? What else could you do? Because their first answer is never their only answer, and it's rarely their best answer. So what else could you do? And you know what? Rhett had something else. And then I went, Rhett, this is amazing. You're amazing. Your ideas are amazing. It's fantastic. What else could you do? And Rhett went, and you could feel it, right? In the moment, there was a silence. He kind of looked up to his left, which means it's like he's trying to access his brain. He's like, I've got some performance anxiety because this is a performance in front of a bunch of people. He's like, I got nothing. And I'm stumped, yeah. And what I did is I didn't go, oh no, the coaching's going badly. He's run out of ideas. I went, that's fantastic. He's run out of ideas. That means we've tapped where he got to. I don't know it's not a failure as a coaching moment. It's a success. And then I'm like, good, I've got an idea as well. And then I shared my idea, which is just what I've been doing right now, which is like, use this script. This might be able to help. So
that's perfect.
It's like, have the discipline to go, look, I'm just going to stay curious a little bit longer. And one of the most powerful combinations is, hey, what ideas do you already have? And what else? And what else? And what else? And is there anything else? Okay, now let me tell you my idea.
Well, and often enough, right? You don't have anything to add as a leader because they've come up to the where you would have come, what you were going to suggest.
So you got two outstanding outcomes. One is you got nothing to add because they've already had all the ideas you've had, which you go, you guys are awesome. I got nothing to add. You guys are fantastic. Look, I mean, this should make you feel more confident next time because you are already there. You figured it out. Go for it. Or you go, you guys are brilliant. I love these ideas. I do have one additional idea that I could share with you that could be helpful. And you get to put that on the table. So you get to add value, show your seniority, share your experience. So you get to also support them if need be.
Right.
Both of those are wins for both parts of the conversation.
Yeah. No. I mean, a huge wins. What is, and I know the answer to this, I think, but in the organizations you've worked with, when they make this change, what is the result, you think? Or what do you see as the result?
Well, so in the end, organizations measure two things. There are two things that organizations care about. One is kind of impact, what output do we have? Mm-hmm. And the other is engagement. How connected and committed are our people? Because if you have fully engaged people working on the right things, you're going to have an organization that has a good chance of success. It still needs a strategy that works.
Sure.
But if you've got a responsibility that goes through an organization to say, let's work on the stuff that matters, then and let's have our best people show up full-heartedly and with their full capacity, then odds are that you're more rather than less likely to succeed. So I do think if you show up and you are more coach-like, and you're able to shift an organization's culture from advice-driven to curiosity-led, which is, what Box of Crayons stands for, you have a number of things that happen. The first is you have responsibility for the issue ending up in the right part of the organization. Mm-hmm. And too often organizations are limited by people who are a step or two steps up taking responsibility for the challenge, because they love to be in control and they love to have the answer and they love to, save the day and be the hero. Whereas if you push the challenge to the level where it best fits, that makes for a more efficient organization. Yeah. Secondly, I think you have a better chance of working on the real challenges, because one of the key questions on the Coaching Habit book is, what's the real challenge here for you? Yeah. And the reason that question's there is because it recognizes that in most organizations, people are working really hard on stuff that's not the real challenge.
Not important.
And having the discipline to say, but what's the real challenge here? But what's the real challenge? No, so what's the real challenge? It's remarkable how a 3-minute conversation will shift things, and you'll get to a kind of core piece around, this is the thing that needs to be figured out. Yeah. So you've got responsibility at the right level. You've got people working on the right challenge. And one of the things that we also teach in both of the books is the power of the difference between coaching for development and coaching for performance. So this is a bit jargony, but coaching for performance is, are you getting stuff done? Okay. Coaching for development is, are you learning and growing as you get stuff done? Okay. And coaching for development doesn't actually show up that much in most organizational life because we're so kind of busy. Come on, hustle through here. Right. And what I found is that by adding the phrase "for you" onto questions, you increase the odds that it's a learning experience for people. So you don't go, "What's the challenge here?" You go, "What's the real challenge here for you? What do you want? What will you say yes to so that you can say no to the other things, or the other way around? What will you say no to so you can say a full yes to this commitment that you're making? What was most useful here for you?" And that continuing directing the spotlight from the problem to the person solving the problem allows people to grow in capacity and confidence and competence and self-sufficiency and autonomy. And if you're looking at your organization, big or small, and you're thinking to yourself, I have people who feel more self-sufficient and autonomous and competent. I have them taking responsibility for the stuff that's appropriate for them, and I have them focused on the stuff that matters. Well, that is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a beautiful thing. If you have an organization that's operating like that, there is no limit to what you can accomplish.
Yeah, it's not a foolproof plan, but it shifts the odds in your favor.
Yeah, well, that's big time. One of the things I loved here in the book and what you've done is you've given away this leadership program, this 52-week. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. This is so fun to put together. Although my team are like, Michael, never promise anything like this again. It's a nightmare. But one of the things that I realized that I have through the work I've done over the years is I have a broad network of people I know a little bit. And books only take you so far. I work really hard to make my books practical and engaging and all of that. But behavior shift often requires more than just reading a book. So part of what's offered through the book, and actually if you go to mbs.works, which is the website, you'll find this on the website, and it's free, as Rhett said. There's something called the Year of Living Brilliantly. So what I did is I was like, who are 52 awesome teachers that I can tap up and kind of persuade / bully into teaching something?
Right.
And I worked really hard to make it an interesting, diverse, eclectic group of people. So they're not all kind of old white dudes like I am, but there's more women than men, and there's 30% people of color, because I want these different perspectives that are there. And then the request was for people to film a video, 2 to 6 minutes. It's like, teach me your best stuff. What's the best thing that you've got to offer people? And part of what's wonderful about that broad direction is the diversity in lessons and styles of video and styles of showing up around that. So yeah, it formally launched about 3 weeks ago. And but if people are interested and they sign up, basically you sign up and then the course rolls out for a year. So you'll be beginning at lesson 1 whenever or wherever you start. And I'm pretty proud of it. These are really good people, and I'm excited. There's part of me, Rhett, that's going, people will have heard the saying, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. Well, I've got 52 cool teachers that are about to appear to you. So you're ready for some of them. You're not ready for all of them, but you're going to meet some really cool people over the next year if you choose to kind of take that path.
I love it. I want people to sign up for that, because I was really fascinated by that and how to pull that off, because I think that's we need it every week, right? We need it weekly. We really do. We really need to work on ourselves every week.
It's coming back to this concept of coaching. You got the Coaching Habit book, and it's really, here are the tools. Let me give you the tools. I've made it as elegant a set of tools as I can, just 7 questions.
Right.
But it turns out that the real secret to being more coach-like is taming your advice monster, because I can tell you the questions in about 2.5 minutes if I talk quickly, probably faster. The knowing how is the easy part. It's the showing up and being is the question that's in front of all of us, which is like, how do you continue to evolve? How do you hold the growth mindset? How do you become the best version of yourself? And that doesn't happen accidentally. That happens through you doing the work.
Yeah, it does. But I think I agree with you. You sort of had to write that book, didn't you? You there was no way to avoid writing The Advice Trap.
I would have loved not to have written it, because if anybody is wondering, it's basically a miserable experience to write books. I mean, I quite like writing books, and I hate it because it's hard. It's relatively easy to write a mediocre book. You sit down and you got an idea and you write the first draft, and then you send it off and you tidy it up a bit, and there you go. You have a mediocre book, because the first draft is always mediocre. And in fact, to be honest, your 4th draft is probably pretty mediocre. Maybe
worse. Mine was worse.
Yeah. And the amount of writing and rewriting that I've done in both of these books is just nuts. I mean, one of the things that you find with authors is like, you know what? It's actually hard for me to pick this book up and read it, because I spent so much time with it that I've got a slight case of PTSD or something as a result of writing this book. I'm like, don't lock me in the room with the book. It's too much.
Hill came back to me my first book and said, hey, we'd like to turn this into a textbook for classrooms. And I said, are you absolutely kidding? Go away.
Right.
I can't look at that book again.
Right. Because there's also something like, it's like, okay, I've been working on these ideas for 2 years. And whilst part of you is going, so Michael, tell us about these ideas, part of me is going, okay, if I really must. I mean, the truth is the book's still fresh enough that I'm kind of up for it. And also, I just believe in this stuff, so I still get excited about it. But it is a slog. But yeah, it felt like it was important enough to write.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was really important. A great
Thank
follow
you.
on to it because um, even with asking the questions every day, right, and even with becoming more of a coach, um, I it made me think about because I'm a business advisor, right,
Yeah,
and that that in and of itself says I'm going to give you advice.
exactly. And they're like, and your clients are going, dude, I'm paying you for your wisdom.
Right.
And the seduction is thinking that your past stories contain the wisdom. And in some ways they do, but not in the way that you think, because your stories are out of date
Yeah.
and your experience fuels the questions that you ask.
Right.
So you and I are both been around long enough that we've seen stuff, and that's really helpful
Yeah.
because it does allow us to hold the place of wisdom and experience. And of course, there's a time and a place for advice, but there's starting with the let me be curious a little bit longer is often a much more powerful way to have the conversation, because when your clients come to you and go, Rhett, I need advice on this, and you go, oh, I know this because I had this with the toy factory 3 years ago. I mean, we had exactly the same problem. But then you're like, that sounds like a real issue, but what's the challenge here for you? And they end up going, actually, my problem is my relationship with my CFO, because we fell out over the thing, and now I don't really trust her. I'm not sure she trusts me. And you're like, oh, okay, this is a completely different thing. I thought it was about the manufacturing line. Apparently, it's now about your relationship with the CFO.
Big difference.
Then I've got some guidance around that, but it's only useful because we figured out what the real challenge was.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, and thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. And I know we've got to head on out of this, and I know you've got your day to take care of, and I want to respect your time, and thank you so much for being on the show today.
It's been a total pleasure. Thanks for letting me hang out with you.
Any sort of parting words for where we are with people who are watching? Anything, how you're handling this situation, and what your sort of outlook on things in the next couple months?
So I tell you the thing that Shannon, the CEO of Boxer Crayons, has implemented, and I've done for my little team as well, because of my new side hustle, the MBS.work side hustle, which is at the end of the day, on a voluntary basis, it's just a check-in on what are we celebrating at the end of the day? What are the small wins that we can talk about? Because when there's a big cloud overhead, it's easy for that to be the thing that we look at the whole time and be the thing that affects the tone in the room. And this idea of just coming in and going, what are you celebrating? And it can be I poured a perfect espresso, to I had a awesome power lunch with Rhett, to whatever else. It's worth taking the moment to hold a space, to hold the light.
Yeah, I love that. And either starting or ending on that, maybe both.
Yeah.
Every day, right? With your meetings and your team meetings, now that you're doing that all probably virtually on Zoom, I think starting a meeting like that with gratitude and what are you thankful for right now?
Yeah.
I think is a great way to
humanize the conversation, because we're all humans trying to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're all trying to find that new normal and that new what's where we are. So, hey man, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for contributing and asking questions. And sorry we didn't get to that today. We'll certainly get to them online when you ask them. And until next Monday, go out and keep doing the good work that you're doing. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. enjoy this time with them and your loved ones, and have a good rest of your day.